All right. Recording in progress. All right, team. Okay, so thanks for coming, guys. I wanted to just do a little team Zoom for all of us and wanted to touch on end of season. You've seen me do some posts recently about this is always that like wonky time of year where there's a lot of people ending their season, going into off season, finishing out end of year races. So there's a couple more races. There's Ironman Arizona this weekend, and there's La Quinta as well, 70.3. And I think that's sort of where the season ends. But for most of us, we're pretty much done the season, and it's a time to reflect and relax a little bit, take some effort and time for other activities, family, some things like that, and reflect on all the good things that happened and all the things that you want to improve on, and where all that sits for people. So definitely want to go through. I've got a little form that maybe some of you are really familiar with on my site, and some of you are new or maybe don't even ever go to my site, aren't familiar. In the guidelines and forms, there's a year debrief. Now we don't have to follow it exactly to a T, but those forms are like, I've created them because they're nice guidelines for us. It gives you, if you're unsure at all where to start with this stuff, it gives you some idea on how to look back on the year. And because our year is so long now, the season starts essentially in February, March, and goes right through to December. It can be hard to remember what the heck even happened in the spring and through the summer. And we really only think back to as far as the last 3 months. And so it's really good to take some time and think about, well, how I like to look at this is, what were the summarizing overall riding things that impacted the year? Because that's really, like, we talk about consistency a lot in training, and we talk about cumulative load, and we talk about accumulation of years and habits and all of those things. And when we are able to hit targets and when we miss targets, sometimes it's just like a one-off thing. We have good races and bad races, but we like to look at the whole year, all the way back to the spring, all the way through the whole season, and say, if we just focus, right on the last race, we can get skewed away from, did I actually improve this year? What worked? What didn't work? What do I want to keep? What do I want to build on? What do I want to improve on? I really like focusing on the positive as far as what was working. Let's define what was actually working that helped you progress, and what were those habits that you either strayed away from or you stayed closely connected to that allowed you to improve physically, mentally, within your equipment, within race execution, all of those kinds of things. And so it's really important when you go ahead and look back on the season, the first question you should be asking yourself is, overriding, what did I do well this year? What were the things that I consistently, and you make that list and say, consistently all year, what did I do well? I'm going to go ahead and share this just so you can all see it. So this is the form that I was talking about that's on my site. And it's just a guideline, right? Everybody likes to debrief these things different, and some of it's worded a little bit different. So what did you do well? What did we hit? What are those list of things that we want to keep? And I think that's really important. So it might be that, there's a specific session that worked for you that you felt like if you consistently did that every week, it really was a staple. It was part of, even though we moved in and out of different blocks of training. Maybe it was something that you incorporated in your nutrition. What were some things that you did differently this year that really, really worked for you? And you saw the impact over the whole extended period of time of the year that just got better and better and better. And so that might answer your question a little bit, Ginny. You talked about, we're going to leave some time at the end for, questions and to bring them up. But with you're wanting to ask about, what you could do for weight loss or better body composition towards your next season in the off season, you can look back through your year and say, what was working as far as fueling my workouts, and what was I doing in, when I was off of my workouts in the evenings and between sessions and those kinds of things that, were good. Which ones were the ones that weren't working? Okay. So we follow really closely with what targets did you hit, and what habits and what things did you do well? So we've got that list first. And then which targets did you set out? If you look back in the year, we do a goal setting at the start of the year. Which ones did we fall short? Which ones did we miss? And was there something that you can see consistently in your habits over a long period of time that strayed you away from actually hitting those targets? So was it something within, you weren't willing to change within your routine? Was it something that you weren't sessions that you consistently maybe weren't willing to tackle or give your best effort? And you could see that over a period of time that just, oh man, every single time I missed that run off the bike. I did that, I did the half Ironman in May, and I knew I just kept blowing off the run off the bike. I missed it. And then, so you can't no denying that when you do that and you look at it over the period of time and you get to the race and go, I didn't feel that great running off the bike. Well, we're probably going to have to change that habit and commit to running off the bike. Right. So that's really, really important to those two pieces of it. If you don't do anything else about debriefing the year, if you could do those two top things, what did you do well? What was working, equipment-wise, nutrition-wise, habit and routine-wise, within the physical program? What were the sessions that you felt you made the most progress with? Race strategy, tactics, and execution-wise, all of those things. What was working? What did you do well? And then which targets did you miss? And identify whether it was, if you missed those targets, was it a direct result of any of those habits and routines that maybe you strayed away from and you weren't consistent with, or you weren't staying on task with, or you didn't realize, oh man, that really added up. I kept doing that. I kept having, I kept missing my, recovery fuel. I kept under fueling my workouts. I kept, was there something specifically that you kept doing that allowed you to miss the target? Or was it just simply a bad race that day? Right? Because those are really important. Sometimes we have a bad race or we miss a target, and we're really quick to put a lot of judgment on ourselves and really be hard on ourselves. We're that kind of person, as far as, we're high achievers and these goals are really important to us. And it's easy to just say, oh, I missed it because, and be really, really hard. But identifying whether it was because we were straying away from what was necessary consistently, or was it just a bad day? And bad days happen, right? And then if you've done those two things and you've had enough and you don't really want to debrief anymore, that's all right. But if you're willing to dig in a little deeper, these are some of the other questions that I really encourage you to have a look at. What health injuries or concerns did you have this year? So you can list them out, and then we can probably identify within those habits and patterns and routines and within the sessions that we were doing, if there was something specific that was contributing to that. So for example, if someone was consistently throughout the year, we kept saying, they were having a hip or hamstring issue, and it followed after every single time we did a block of big gear work on the trainer. It didn't happen outside, or it happened, it didn't happen on a hill, but it kept happening over and over again. That's a consistent pattern that we could say, oh, we had this injury that kept popping up. And was it because of X, Y, and Z? So these are the things when I say when we debrief the year that we're trying to uncover throughout the year. Was there little things that kept happening that held us back? And was there little things that we kept doing that pushed us that next level forward, that little notch forward that we might not recognize in the moment? So again, what did you feel you did well this year? And it's good to identify, what did you like in your overall program for the year? So when I look at my own training, I know that there's certain sessions, if I do them consistently, I like them. I like to do them. And because I'm consistent with them, they have an impact over 365 days of over the whole 52 weeks of the year. It's then all of a sudden it adds up, and it pushed me forward to the goals that I had. So which parts of the program did you like? Which parts did you feel worked really well? Again, focusing on the positive and saying what was really working for me, and writing them out and identifying them. And we can link all of these things to habits and patterns and know from there what direction, okay, we need to keep these things in because they're really, really working, right? And which things were holding us back, and where did that fall in? It might be the littlest thing, a little clue that we find that says, and I use that example of I've had that with people. Oh, okay, we kept getting this ankle injury. It kept coming up over and over again, but it happened every single time we tried this series of sessions in a row. And then we can look at that and go, oh, okay, well, that's not working for that athlete. Next year, we need to try a different approach with that. So I had another athlete where I noticed they kept having a little bit of an issue with their performance and injury, and it was associated with every single time I had them do high anaerobic work that was short and snappy on the trainer, they were overachieving on the numbers. And although that might be felt rewarding in the moment, like they were working harder towards a goal, what we noticed is about 3 weeks into the block, every time we tried that, they ran into some trouble. So that was a coaching cue for me to say, every time I assign this, although it was necessary physically for them to make the jump forward, I could see that habit and pattern, say, every time I assign this for this athlete, we need to make sure we put a real cap on those numbers so we avoid these mistakes again. So I'm telling you these stories to help you sort of think about these things for yourself and to have a really clear understanding of what we're looking for when we debrief the year, not just, hey, did I win my age group at this race or not? And then we let that override the whole year. That's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for more, what were the overriding themes that allowed us to be successful and the overriding themes that were maybe holding us back, and we need to approach it a little bit differently. And then we start to look at goals going forward after we know, okay, what is it that we're going to change and what is it that needs to happen to make those changes, and what commitments do we need to make to ourselves in order to make those changes to go forward to those goals. So if you say, okay, well, I now have a really clear understanding of all of these, what worked, what didn't. And it's one thing to have that clear picture, and then it's another thing to say, okay, from here, what do I actually need to do to make those changes? And this is the time of year, once you've identified those things, it might be that you're talking to your support system and saying, hey, I didn't communicate very well last year on what my goals were, and I didn't communicate to you the time commitment it was going to take. So going forward, I'm going to communicate better, really outline my schedule better to fit everything in. And so you're setting yourself up for success to change that pattern and habit that maybe had you kept missing that same session, or whatever that led to, and you're willing to make those changes in order to reach the goals that you have. So these are the kinds of things that we're looking for when we go ahead and debrief these years. So you can find this and you can add other things to this. You can, there's other things that might come up for you that you want to say, hey, I'm going to, add these notes. I'm going to, a debrief should be personal to you, and it's a reflection of your year, and then a setting of new goals to say, these are the things that I really need to change, and look at myself and be able to address them to go forward. So we don't just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. All right, so from here, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, and you guys can see all that. I'm gonna go ahead and, for anyone who maybe wants to put their hand up first before I just start calling on people and picking on people outright, anyone willing to share right away, just based on that part of the conversation, where they're at? Anything that they noticed that they said, and what I mean by that, pick one thing that you noticed that you did all year. When I'm talking here, hopefully you guys are you're thinking back on your year, you're thinking about how it went, you're thinking about the targets that you hit and you felt really happy about, the progress that you made, you're thinking about the ones that you missed. Let's go ahead and share what were one change that you made that you felt like you consistently applied that helped you move forward athletically and maybe even throughout your year on all your goals that you'd set for yourself. Julie, you go ahead and share one with us. People love it when I pick on them.
Oh man, well, it's been a rough year, so I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the one thing, I can't say it's like paying great dividends right now, but I I feel like the one thing that I was more consistent with, and it was working well early in the year, was consistently doing the strength work, even though it destroys me every single week. And it was I don't like to feel crappy biking and running, and the strength just continually does that to me. So I have to go in there regardless, following the plan that you give me and stay with it and just know that eventually my body does just get used to it. But that's been a hard thing when I know I have a really hard run or something the next day. I, in the past, would tend to find a million reasons to not do the strength because I would want to hit the workout the next day, which was less important than actually getting the strength work done.
Right. That's actually a really great share because, you identified that's exactly what we're talking about, right? You reflect back on the year and you can identify a habit that had a direct impact on whether you were able to progress forward or not. And that's really what we're looking for when we do these debriefs, right? It's all about like making sure that we don't keep repeating the same mistakes, because we can just aimlessly go from year to year to year and never really take that moment to pause and take a look at, and it's helpful to write things out, right? Just have a real clear list, like this was what was working and this is what wasn't, and this is what it's like a truth dance, right? Like this this is really obvious, this is what's going on here, and this is my truth. And when you pause at the end of the year and get a chance to do that, then you get the opportunity to correct it, and hopefully we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And I get to do that as a coach as well. At the end of the year, I can look at, hey, what really worked in the program overriding, because I get to see everybody's results and their progress over the year. And although every single athlete is different, I will find in the same thing, maybe one small thing that was overriding with every single athlete. And I can say, hey, I need to tweak that in my coaching a little bit and in my programming. And I've refined that over and over again over the last 20 years. You might find a consistent pattern. There was one year, it was a long time ago, I don't know, it was like 8 years ago or something, where I kind of stepped back and I noticed, I was like, man, everybody is swimming and biking really well and they're having great results and they're racing well, but all of them were underperforming just a little bit on the run. And I dove through everybody, all of the notes, and I look at everything. So although all of you do this as athletes individually, I also do this as a coach, not only with every athlete, but on the overriding theme of a whole program. Say, where maybe is there a little bit of something that's falling short? Why is everybody not, falling short just a little bit here? And so I made the correction in the programming, and it was, it's never a big thing. It's always these really small things, right? I needed to add a few more frequency runs for people, just a little bit more overall frequency volume, a little bit more stride work, that kind of stuff. And just that little change across the board, of course, a little bit different for every athlete, but everyone's performance went up on the run the next year, and everybody not only stayed a little bit more injury free, but they ran better off the bike and their performances overall went up. And so as much as I, encourage you and push you guys to do these kinds of things with each one of yourselves, I also do that as a coach. Where is it that we can do a little bit better? Where is the overriding themes, and where are the things that, we can change just a little bit? So Joanne, how about yourself?
Yeah, so the runs were really important. It was one of my goals. My off the bike runs was one of my goals. I wanted to improve this year for 2023 because I had an injury from the prior year, and it really jacked up my knee. So for this year, I committed to do my knee exercises, rehab from the beginning to end. And even if you didn't give me my exercises, I still did it. So that worked really well because my runs, they went well. I didn't kick ass, but I didn't injure myself. So that was our goal, right?
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I changed and committed this year, and it worked. And the other thing was that went really well was that I noticed my gravel rides. The first quarter, I was doing a lot of gravel rides. And then for my Texas race, it helped for my Texas race. Like felt too easy. And then I didn't do as much gravel for the summer, the end of the year. And I totally kind of felt it at my last race. So I can see that somehow gravel riding does help me, or did help me. I feel like it did with that. So that's one of the things I do want to change going to the 2024 is maybe do a little bit more gravel riding.
Right. Yeah, so that's really good stuff, right? That's awesome. Thank you. It's, it's usually just those little things. And when we can identify them and write them down, it's, we can, because it's easy to forget this stuff. Like I say, it's hard to remember what was happening in the spring, and what are those little changes that we can always look back on and say, oh yeah, I remember in March, I was doing strength work. Oh, in March, I was staying committed to getting outside on my bike, on my gravel bike. And then it sort of fizzle faded as the year went, and it had a direct impact, right? And so I think just having these conversations allows us to find those little loopholes. And we all do it, right? We all have those things that we think the season goes on and you get a little distracted or you fall away from it a little bit. And that's why you get this opportunity at this time of year to, it's a little more relaxed time of year. You're investing, like I say, some time on let your fitness come down a little bit. You're focused on other things. We know we've got a long year ahead of us. You're resting a little bit. And so, this is the time to do that. And especially we can really look at equipment changes as well. That's a really big one as well. This is the time of year. Was there anything in your equipment that was holding you back? Volker just said that while we were hanging out before we started the call. He didn't realize, I had at some point taken the insoles out of my shoes, and then it created an injury. And so it's these little things that we write them down and make sure we reflect on them and say, I need to make sure that I don't make those same mistakes over and over again, that I always, every single time I get a new pair of shoes, that I keep those insoles in them and keep that support there. So really important to have that stuff. Jose, I know you made some really big nutritional changes this year, and you found they have had a huge impact. They've really had a positive impact for you. You're struggling a little bit at the start of the year with recovery, and then you took the time to make those changes and you've really stuck to them. I'd love for you to share with the group how that's impacted your season and helped you as an athlete, and we want to learn from that.
Yeah, it was I feel a little bit dumb because I did it at the last quarter of the year. The change that I did, I have done it before. Well, it happens. But what I did is I stopped eating carbs. Actually, not 100%, but I try to eat the least as possible, and I increased my protein intake. And I was suffering of cramps. I don't have cramps anymore. I was suffering that my weight was jumping up and down because of the season training. And this time with the changes in the food, my weight is very stable. I don't have cramps. I don't have swelling. I don't have swelled legs. I don't have heavy legs anymore. So I feel very light. I feel very competitive every day. Something that I wasn't feeling before. It's really interesting, and I'm still thinking about it, and I'm not really sure all the changes that I'm going to suffer, but I'm very positive, and I like what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, it's great. And those nutritional changes are really personal to each athlete. So for some athletes, that's going to work really well for Jose, and that has had a really positive impact for him. And the main thing is that he identified something that wasn't working for him. He made the change, and now it's concrete. He knows that those changes work for him and sticking with them. So it's that reflection, identifying what's working, and then sticking with it and carrying it forward into the next season and seeing the impact of it. For someone else, obviously, for me, I'm a real high carb type athlete. If I didn't eat carbohydrates, I wouldn't be able to perform day to day. I wouldn't be able to recover day to day. I think that everybody's nutritional needs are different. So if you're, but the main thing is that you looked at that and went, this is the change I need. And it had a positive impact. And And we know that, and we can carry that forward into next year. So that's a
I
really
just want to add that during races and during training, I do take carbs a lot. I mean, it's not that I don't take any carbs. When I'm training and when I'm racing, I take around 450 an hour
Exactly.
calories of carbs. So it's not that I'm not taking, just the daily eating that I'm doing is a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, really good stuff. I'm going to share my screen again here. And what I wanted to go through here, and this is, we're not going to read it verbatim, but just kind of you can browse it. So the next step of the other part of this puzzle is, once you have gone through last year and you're starting to look forward to this year, everybody knows we're looking at the race season, right? Some races fill up really fast, and some races, you've got all the luxury in the world to pick your race season. But you're wanting to start to identify, what do you want that race season to look like next year? Now, we also want a little bit of a chill out period where your brain can rest a little bit and you can disconnect just a little bit at this time of year, for sure. But because some of you really need to plan with work and, booking time off work, family, travel, all those kinds of things, races filling up, you do need to start to consider it a little bit. And so as you're looking at your race season, I am here to help you facilitate as far as when you pick something, is it going to work or is it not? However, as a coach, one of the things that's really important to me is that every athlete should pick a race calendar that they want to do. It's got to put a fire in your belly. Even when I was racing professionally and Scott Molina was my coach, he used to say that to me. He's like, I am not picking your race calendar for you. I'm going to make some suggestions on what courses would suit you. I'm going to help you when you pick a race to decide if that's going to be a good call or not. However, it's really important as an athlete that whatever you pick, you've got to have a fire in your belly for that race. And that's so important, because when you get into those, training blocks and you're tired, and those times a year where you don't want to train, or you're out there on the course and you're thinking, why the heck am I here? You've got to know that you picked that for yourself and that you decided that, and this was important to you. So that's the number one thing. When you're looking at your race calendar going forward here, I want you to look at something and go, I'm excited about that. Or that really puts a fire in my belly. And fire in my belly can mean anything from it scares the crap out of me to I'm just really excited to go there, or I've always wanted to do that, or whatever that means to you. But it's got to come from the athlete. That's really, really important. The other things to take into consideration, and this I can post for you guys afterwards as well, and I have it in some of my articles on my site, so it's easy to find. But the other things are, how does it impact your life? So it's one thing if you got a race that puts a fire in your belly, but if it's going to end in chaos in your life, as far as your work and travel and family, all that, it's probably not the right race for you. So you really need to also look at your race calendar and say, does it suit my life? And does it match my life? And is my family and my support network and my team and everybody on board that they are going to support me through this time? Because we all know when we're training really hard for a race that we need that period of time. So if you've got a whole bunch of work travel in the last 6 weeks right before a main A race, that's probably not a good match, right? If you're looking at your year and you go, oh, I really want to go do this race, however, I'm going to be on the road for 4 weeks before, and I'm not really going to be able to do specific training towards that event, then it's probably best to find another one that you're excited about, where you've got a good block of time where you're not going to be traveling, you're not going to have a lot of family commitments, you're not going to have a lot of work commitments, everybody's on board, and you can really focus on that goal. Also, where do you live, right? It's one thing to want to do a race. Let's say you live somewhere where it's the dead of winter for all the way until March. However, you want to go race Texas. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible. It's definitely possible. I came from Calgary many years ago and raced Ironman Malaysia. However, I did go to New Zealand for a long time before that, and there was other things that were put in place so I could be successful at that. But I was willing to do that knowing, hey, I'm going to a race in February. So if you want to race early season and it's winter where you live, take into consideration, hey, I'm going to have to do a lot of training on my trainer indoors. I'm going to have to bear through that. I might have to do some heat training, those kinds of things to be ready. Or it might be better if you think, man, I'm actually really not willing to do that. And I don't want to train through the dark and cold for an Ironman that's going to be hot and killer. Then you might say, okay, well, that race is probably not for me then. And I need to pick something in June or July or August, right? So where you live has a really big impact on how successful you're going to be. So same thing, as you're debriefing, you could look back at these things as well. Hey, did I pick a race season that was in line with where I live and my life and all the other commitments I have? And did I give myself the best opportunity to perform at those races that were really important to me? So planning forward and debriefing, that's why these two go hand in hand together, right? And then what are your goals? And you know, how much can you physically race? So it's one thing to pick a race calendar and say, I would like to do 15 races this year. And then you take a look at it and go, holy man, that's a heck of a lot of travel. And it doesn't really, once you map it all out and you look at it and we put them in training peaks and the training blocks, and you go, wow, I'm actually just going to be on the road and traveling all the time. And where are the blocks that I'm going to actually make improvements and gain on my fitness and move from race to race? So it's one thing to say, I want to do all these races, this looks really exciting. And then to actually map it out and go, is this physically possible? Do I actually physically have the ability to race this much? Is this logistically possible? And does this make sense as far as progression and getting better from race to race as well? So as you debrief and you plan forward, those are things that you can go through it as well. Like, how did that play out through the year? Were you able to carry momentum from race to race? Was that well thought out? How did it work? Sometimes we plan it out as best we can. And then part of that debrief is, okay, well, what I noticed was I didn't recover that well from race to race. I'd planned a really big race calendar and, I didn't actually make good fitness gains. So I need to spread my races out a little bit more and have more defined training blocks. So again, when you're debriefing, these are things that did they work or did they not work? And as you plan forward and you look at your season, where can we make those changes instead of just making the same mistakes over and over again, where it's, I'm just going to keep trying to go from race to race to race and it's not working. Well, maybe it did work for you. Again, what did work? So maybe you realized and discovered, hey man, I gain a lot of fitness from race to race and I actually carry a ton of momentum from race to race. I just keep getting better and better. So you might plan your season like that, right? You might go, okay, well, because I do that, I'm going to go ahead and plan 4 half Ironmans throughout this block of season and know that I'm just going to get better from race to race. So again, as we debrief and look back and we plan forward, these are all things that should be on your list and you go through this stuff. All right. So Ginny had a question about this time of year, and we do, I will open it up a little bit here at the end for questions and sharing and all of that, but I'll start with this. This is the time of year where you can make changes. So scheduling changes, habit changes, nutritional changes, equipment changes, all those things, you don't want to be doing them right before the season or in the middle of the season. Although you might tweak those things a little all year as you go, this is the time of year, if you need to make major changes, this is when to do it. If you need a new bike fit, if you need a new wetsuit, if you want to change running shoes, if you're looking at getting a run gait analysis, if you're looking at, completely revamping your race nutrition or your overall nutrition like Jose did, this is the time of year after you debrief this stuff to make these big changes, test them out for a long period of time, and then take that into your preseason and into your early season races and see if they're working for you. So Jenny specifically asked about, and it's a tricky question because this time of year, it is good if you've had a big race season to put on a couple pounds actually. So it's a mistake to stay in top physical performance weight wise, or, with body composition wise and fitness wise all year long. If you do that, you're going to plateau. We're not able to get better every year. And there's a risk of burnout and illness and injury if we're at race fitness and race body composition all year. Okay, so we want to take that into account. The other part, flip side of that is, if body composition was one of those things that you look back on, you debrief on the year and you say, this held me back a little bit, and I'd like to make some nutritional improvements to help for next year. And we know we don't want to be trying to make those changes right into a race because, you know, we might be a little bit low on energy or we're going through some changes. So this would be the time of year that you could say, hey, I'm going to work with a dietitian. We're maybe going to keep a food log for a week. That's the base place to start, right? Keep a food log for a week. Again, everything lays in our habits and patterns that we do consistently. If there's something that you're doing consistently that's really sticks out and it's really obvious, you make those little changes first. Now, if those little changes aren't the things that you need with timing, you know, what you're eating, those kinds of things, and you do that for a few weeks. Joanne and I had that conversation. She made some tiny little changes, saw a huge improvement right away. So we didn't need to take it to the next step just yet, where we say, okay, well, let's bring a registered dietitian in and make even bigger changes. Now, if you've already done all those things and you look at everything and we know, hey, this is all looks really good, then we might say, this is the time of year I'm going to actually link up with someone and try those things and revamp my nutrition day to day. So, and like I say, it's the same thing with equipment. If you're thinking about changing your running shoes, you're thinking about changing your bike fit, you're thinking about, you know, swim technical analysis, all that stuff, this is the time of year to do it for sure. Okay, so questions at the end here, questions so far, things that people want to bring up, things that they want to share, things that they have on their mind. It's always crickets when I do this. Jenny.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm in my car, so it's dark. I'm on my way somewhere. For me, I think, you know, in looking at what I need to change, I've been actively working at that. I've had, you know, last year was a horrible year for me. I couldn't run the whole year, so I just did swim and bike stuff and did some gravel, which was fun. And I'm just still, you know, I had treatment, some PRP treatments 6-7 weeks ago, so I'm still kind of restricted on activity. So my goal is to just, you know, try to get healthy, and I do a pretty good job now with my diet and you know, with my nutrition. So that's always something that I'm super mindful of. I have kind of the opposite problem that probably most Americans do, where if I get stressed or under the gun about things, I just forget to eat, and then I lose weight, and then I get hurt and I wonder why. And so I have to worry about the opposite, just to make sure I'm getting enough protein, kind of like Jose. So that's a big goal of mine. And then just strength work and working toward, I want to race again next year. I don't want to just fuck around with these stupid local dumb stuff that I've been doing just to try to stay somewhat in the game. And so I really want to race, you know, do some halves and half Ironmans and actually get a chance to race next year. So that's my goal. So
I love that. I love that. So you know what I love the most about that whole conversation is I love the fire in your belly when you say that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like we got to have that fire in our belly, right? And I just did that TT race, and I had never done anything. I mean, I've been riding bikes since '99. I know a lot of you have been riding forever too, but I was like, man, this is something I've never done before. I can't believe, you know, you'd find like, when you do this stuff for a long time and you find something you've never done and you have no idea how it's going to go, it's kind of cool, right? And so you get that fire in your belly and you get really passionate about it. And I love that. I could hear that from you. And that's what you wanted this time of year as you're looking at all of your stuff, like debriefing and all that. And I want to avoid people being overly critical of all the things that, you know, oh, I didn't do this, or this one day that didn't turn out. It's like, no. It's all the habits and patterns and the things that are really great and what really puts that huge fire in your belly that you're excited about. And so what I really love is that you went, okay, These are the things that are holding me back. This is where I'm at. This is what I felt unhappy about. And then this is like absolutely what puts a fire up my butt. And I really want to do it. And now's the time to identify those things and get after it. So I think you're in a really, really good place for that. And that's really cool. I really like that. Michael, let's share a little bit with you too. I mean, you have that same kind of passion and fire after Florida here. And I love that. I could see, you've waited out a patient year, you had foot surgery, you've come back really, really well and patiently. And even though I know you feel like you're like, whoo, man, but you've done such an amazing job. And I think that, what I noticed the most from you after Florida was that same kind of passion. Like, I want to get after this. And I think that's really cool. And I, as you reflect on this stuff, I'd like you to share a little bit of that.
Yeah. I mean, you're all get injured sometime or another. This one has been the worst for me, the longest recovery and the biggest maybe question mark, like, am I ever gonna run like I did? And so far the answer is no. But I'm hopeful. I put Ironman Florida on the calendar knowing that it was a huge ask I was on crutches 6.5 months ago. And so the day turned out okay, other than when the run came, I ran as long as I'd run in training, which was 2 hours, which is not going to cover a marathon. So super bummed to have my first DNF on Ironman number 10. But I think it was the right call to not finish and risk a setback. So maybe at 63, I'm getting wiser. I don't know, but I'm still kind of like pissed that I couldn't be ready enough to have a better outcome. So what was the question?
Well, you know what? It's that you have a fire in your belly for next year and what you need to do. So what's important about your story, Michael, with this is you had the surgery at the start of the year, and we always talk about when you pick a race, right? There's always risk when you're coming back from anything of I call it putting the cart before the horse, right?
Alert from Google Chrome helper. Alerts. 2 hot takes.
I don't know what that was.
That was my computer.
Okay. It's like, what was that? But so the risk is that you make your comeback too quick, right? And when you pick a race and you go, okay, I'm coming back, and you put the cart before the horse, and we had a really, really honest conversation between athlete and coach on this, that it was like, hey, we know that we're not going to let a race date dictate how we progress your running back. We're going to let your foot and the progression bring your running back. And
see, I thought you were kidding when we made that deal.
Nope. That was a solid deal. That was a solid
No, that, and I said a few times throughout the year, there is no doubt in my mind I'd have been re-injured had you not brought that to my attention, and maybe re-injured for like the last time. And so I'm thankful that I'm at this, that I'm here today and not having suffered a setback. Although I gotta say, I'm kind of getting impatient too. Like, hey, if my body cannot handle, or the foot anyway, a marathon like ever again. That's possible, I suppose. I don't want to admit it, but it's maybe. But so hopefully I'll find that answer out sooner than later, because I don't want to keep beating my head on the wall if it's going to be, and if I'm limited to half, I'm okay with that. That'd be okay. So.
Yeah. And I think it is good. I think all athletes go through those points of doubt, right? Where they're like, am I ever going to be able to do this again? Am I ever going to be fast again? Am I ever going to, I think, when you get into this part of the season where you are reflecting and you're looking at things, you go, am I going to hit these targets? Is it there? And so you have two choices when you're faced with that stuff. Because I've been there many times in my life. I've had, big injuries where I wasn't able to do anything for a couple of years. I've had extended periods of time off where I've come back and wondered, am I ever going to be able to go fast again? Am I ever going to be able to do this again? I've taken 5 years off completely on endurance sport and then come back and wondered if I'd ever ride a bike half decent again. And so the big thing is, you know, you don't want to decide the outcome before you try. So you just go through the process and the habits, and that's going to dictate whether it happens or not. Right? Now, if at some point you decide you don't want to anymore, if you're like, hey, I just don't really want to do this anymore, I don't want to keep trying, then that's a personal decision, and that's a conversation to have, and that's okay. And you can pick another goal, and you can pick something else. But deciding whether you can or can't before you even try, because of how you feel in the moment, is a really, really risky place mentally to put yourself. And I will say that every time, I've definitely, when I've come back to endurance sport, when I first came back after 5 years off and I had changed my entire body composition into a power lifter, and to jump back on the bike, I couldn't do any of the rides or anything that I used to do at all, let alone fast. I mean, I couldn't even do it. So for example, I used to go up Lemon twice a week, and you used to time trial from mile 0 to the 21 post. And I couldn't even get up to mile 5 at all. So it wasn't even a question of like, am I going to be fast again? It was like, I don't even know if I can ride a bike. I couldn't get up the backside of gates. I had to get in the car because I couldn't even get up the backside of gates during camp. I was like, I can only ride on the flat. I can't get up this hill anymore. And so, but I knew I wanted to do it again. And I knew I was willing to go through whatever amount of suffering it took. And I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, because you're going to suffer a lot. In fact, you're probably going to suffer a little bit more. The older we get, the harder it gets, right? And so, but you have to make that decision as you reflect on things and we move forward and say, I really want to do this, and it's really important to me, and I'm going to try for as long as I can and see where it goes. And then once, that's going to dictate to see how it comes out. And I think that's a really important part of this whole conversation too, is just saying like, hey, this, like that goes back to that fire in your belly. This is what matters to me, and deciding, I'm willing to go through whatever it takes and whatever steps and however long it takes. Unfortunately, we don't get to decide when it happens. I took last year, I took about 5 months off the bike, and I was just swimming and started jogging again after a couple years off and lifting weights. And I was jogging at 12-minute miles. Jenny and I did our first run together at camp. That was like one of my first little jogs. I did 20 minutes, I think, at like 14-minute mile pace. And I had decided I wanted to try and do St. George half Ironman. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to run again. I'd taken a couple years off again. I'd taken a bunch of time off the bike again. I hadn't swam in a couple years, and I wanted to do the half Ironman. I had no idea. I was like, who knows? I mean, I didn't know if I'd just be full of injuries. And when I got back on the bike, I thought, well, usually it takes me about 3 months for my bike to start to come around. And it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was months. And it was really all the way until this later part of the season where I started to actually feel faster on the bike again. I was like, man, I am just dragging a load of bricks every single ride that I do, and every ride hurt, and I was dropped from every group ride and uncomfortable and all of those things. But sometimes you got to decide that you want to do it and you want to keep showing up, and then eventually it comes around and you get faster and faster. So I think that's a huge part of it. And you can see, hopefully we all have our stories, but hopefully as a coach, not only can I guide you from all the experiences I have, but also lead by example and saying, even though I felt that way at the start of the year, I was still able to, when I reflect back on my own personal season, not as a coach. I talk about reflecting as a coach and as a program as a whole, but reflect as an athlete myself. I can say the start of this year, I was swimming 200 meters, jogging at 14-minute mile pace, and had taken 5 months off the bike. And by the end of this year, I got 5th at Ironman, or 70.3 St. George. I hadn't done a half Ironman in years. I was able to win some bike races at the end of this year, Chino Grinder, Wilcox, and then just did the TT. And we tied that gal and I pushed each other to tying the course record for that course. So you can see at the start of the year, I had no idea. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking I'm just going to have to possibly jog around very slowly and lift weights and just coach from the car again. And by the end of the year, that changes a lot, just simply because I wanted to, you know? So hopefully that, if anything, we all have inspiration from one another, but hopefully I can help lead by example as well, of that, you know, you're not alone if you're thinking that stuff. I know that there's several people listening right now that are in the exact same place and thinking those things. And so I think, you know, by sharing that, I'm happy you share that stuff, and I'm willing to share my own experiences too. And hopefully we can, you know, sound just like Jenny, where she's like, you know, got that fire, like, God damn it, I want to get out there and frickin' race. So that's really cool. I kind of rambled for a long time there because I'm really passionate about that. So hopefully that was okay. Any other add-ons or anything that anyone wants to ask or say or anything like that before we wrap this up? All right. So if no one has any last minute burning desires here, obviously, thank you so much for coming and your time. I know it's valuable. Thanks for letting me record it. I will post it. What I would love for all of you to do from here is go to that guidelines and page on my, you go to guidelines on my site. If you need to pull up that form, if you've already got it locked down and you don't need that kind of guidance, but just take some time to reflect and go through these lists. What worked well? What was really great in the program? What worked, you know, where were your successes? What was the overriding theme of what was working? What did you miss? What of those habits and patterns led to maybe you hitting those targets or missing those targets? And we've identified them in several examples tonight through this conversation. Where do you want to go? What's that race season look like? How can we plan it accordingly around of the guidelines I give you? I'll post that little list of things that I wrote out for you as well. And then we can start to shape that we can take all of that feedback and we can start to shape what's the next year going to look like. I encourage people through the holidays to have some downtime, to have some flexibility time, to disconnect a little bit. But if you're going to do anything through this time, that reflection is a good thing to do. And then as we come out of the holiday season, we have a really, really clear roadmap of what the next year looks like. And we have that fire in our belly and we know exactly what we're doing for the next year. So that's the main homework at this time of year. Don't worry so much if you miss a session or if you got to spend more time shopping or if you got some holiday parties or you drink a little too much. I'm not worried about that at this time of year. Go ahead and do that stuff. You know, stay close to at least, 80% of your routine. But if you can use this period of time to really reflect so that when we get out of the holiday season, we've got this real clear identified what worked, what didn't, what's our roadmap, and then we get locked into the next year and see improvements, because that's all we want, right? We want to improve a little bit every year. So awesome, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully that was worth your time, and we will talk to you all soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.